Live well. Energy crisis update. What help is available? H. Urwin, Yorkshire Energy Doctor, 13th of October 2002. About Live Well. Live Well is a series of events aimed at helping people make the most of life with sight loss. Live Well is a collaborative project between 6 local independent sight societies. Sight Advice South Lakes, Cumbria. My Sight's Notts, Nottingham. Sight Airedale, in the Airedale area of North and West Yorkshire. Support for Sight, in Mid and West Essex. Sutton Vision, in the London Borough of Sutton. And Outlookers, in Huddersfield in West Yorkshire.
Good morning, everybody. This is Tim from Sight Advice South Lakes, part of the Rainbow Coalition, as we are called. The 5 sight loss organisations, that's ourselves. God, who's on there? Sight Airedale, Support for Sight, Sutton Vision, Outlookers, and what's the Nottingham called? My Sight Notts, who aren't on here today. But anyway, today we welcome back Kate Urwin, who's the Yorkshire Energy Doctor. She did a brilliant session for us a few weeks ago on the potential help the government might give, etc. She was right on everything.
And, sure that wasn't the case.
And she also sent us some energy tips at the time, which we didn't have time to go through. But it appears the government seemed to be not too keen on giving these out, which is really bizarre. But we asked Kate anyway, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, if she wanted to come and do this. So we were going to do this anyway. So what I'd like to do is pass on to Kate, who will introduce herself properly, and we'll leave it to you, Kate. Okay, then, off you go. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, Tim, and thanks for inviting me back again. I'm hoping I won't be too repetitive from last time, but yeah, some of you guys might have new questions, or things have changed a bit since I think it was July I came last time. Yeah, so I'm Kate Urwin. I run an organisation called Yorkshire Energy Doctor. We're a community interest company, and we're based near Selby in North Yorkshire. And we're all about supporting people with their energy bills. So a bit like the Citizens Advice or someone like Martin Lewis, but it's, what can you do to reduce your costs? Do you have any problems with your energy company that we can help with, and that sort of stuff? So what I'm going to do today, which sort of Tim has suggested, is to give an update on what is actually happening with energy prices and a few tips around managing your own bills. So if you've got any questions about that, we can have a chat about that as we go. And then I'll go on to an update on the government financial support schemes, because some of you might have started to get some of those payments, and there is a little bit of confusion about how they're actually being made. And then we'll do a little bit about how much things actually cost to run in your house, energy saving tips. If anyone's got any tips that they do that they'd like to share, I always think that's a good idea. But generally, I quite like these to be sort of fairly relaxed and informal. So feel free to ask any questions as we go. Hope that sounds all right with everyone for what we're going to do.
Excellent.
So what I'll do, I'll put some slides together, and I can circulate those afterwards, but I will sort of talk through them all as I go through them, but it helps me as well just to keep on track, as I could go off on tangents around energy. So I'll bring up my slides now. Have they come up on the screen?
Yeah.
I have.
Yes.
Yeah, fabulous. Okay, so just to give you a run through what's happened with energy prices, because this has definitely changed since last time I came. So the first thing I wanted to do was just give a reminder about how the energy price system works in this country. So the government tells energy companies they have to set an energy price cap, and that's the maximum price that energy companies can charge their customers. But the most important thing is that it's based on average electric use and average gas use. So it's not a cap on your total energy bill. It's a cap on the unit prices you pay and your standing charges. And I probably explained this last time, but it's a bit like if you go to the petrol station, or they might say, right, we'll cap your litre of diesel at £1.50. But how much petrol you need to buy depends on how much driving you do. So it's exactly the same with energy. they might cap your rate of electric at 35p for a unit, but your total bill is going to depend on how much electric you use. So I've just put a graph up. This explains how the price cap has changed since 2019, when it was first brought in, so about 3 years ago. Up until the back end of last year, the average costs were always about £1,200 a year. So on average, about £100 a month. We then had a price rise on the 1st of April this year that took average energy bills to just less than £2,000. We were then expecting an absolutely massive increase on the 1st of October. And if it had gone up in line with what we expected, on average, our bills would have gone up to £3,500 a year, which is clearly getting to ridiculous amounts of money. So a couple of weeks ago, well, probably more than that now, the government actually intervened, and they have now capped the average energy bill at £2,500 per year. But this was really badly reported in the media, and it suggests that energy bills have been frozen at £2,500 a year. But that is definitely not the case. That is still based on average energy use. And if you use more than average, your bills will be more than £2,500. £2,500 is not just we can all use whatever we want and our bills won't go above that. But that is certainly how a lot of the newspaper headlines reported it. The other thing to bear in mind, which I can't remember if I said last time or not, that £2,500 is based if you pay direct debit. If you pay, for example, on a prepayment meter, your cost will be a little bit more than that. But if any of you pay your energy bill when it comes, so you might go to the shop or phone up to pay it, you are paying a real premium for that. And you're paying over £200 a year more than if you pay direct debit. So your unit prices and your standing charges are higher if you pay the bill when it comes. So we can't do a huge amount about energy prices, to be honest. But one thing you could do is switch to a direct debit if you don't already do that. So clearly, you know, £2,500 is clearly a lot better than £3,500 a year, but the prices are still double what they were this time last year. So, you know, it hasn't all been sorted, in my opinion, as much as it could have been, but it's still better than it was. So what I'll do is I'll just give you a few tips to manage your bills, and then I'll just see if there's any questions on this. So as I've already said, we've got the price cap. This is now fixed for 2 years. So we're not going to have this like every 3 months or every 6 months. Oh my God, what are energy prices going to be set at in 6 months' time? We know now this is what it's going to be for 2 years. So whatever your sort of payments roughly are now, at least for sort of budgeting and that sort of thing, we know roughly that's what it's going to stay at. I've already said it's not a cap on your total bill though. So what to do, and this is probably the same advice I gave in July, switching energy company still doesn't really make much difference. The prices are pretty much the same across all the different companies. If you decided that, you know, because of we expected the prices to go up massively in October, if you decided to fix at your prices a few months ago by, for example, just signing up to a fixed tariff with your company, you may find that that is now more expensive because of the government intervention. So in the long run, you might have been, you know, paying less, but because the government have intervened, you might find yourself out of pocket. So I just wanted to say that if you did sign up to a fixed tariff a few months ago, your prices will all be automatically reduced down, so you're not penalised for having done that. And I think one of our biggest tips is still just, you know, give your regular meter readings. And if you, when you do get bills, just sort of keep an eye on things, because, you know, none of us know what our bills are going to be like in November, December, do we? We have no idea with the new prices. So if when bills come in, you're sort of keeping an eye on them, checking your payments, making sure they're always up to date, avoiding estimated meter readings, all those sort of things. I just think, you know, we need to get over this thing we used to do with energy bills where we just used to pay them and not really look at them. There is a website, and again, I'll circulate this afterwards. If you want to know what your own sort of personal projection will be in terms of cost for the year, Martin Lewis, the money saving expert, has got a website where you can go onto and find that out for your own energy usage. So keep an eye on direct debit payments. For any of you on sort of prepayment meters, if you are, then just be aware that, you know, the money is going to disappear a lot faster this winter because the costs are double what they were last winter. So some of these cost of living payments that I'll go on to, we'd always say really good idea to perhaps get those on the prepayment meter. And then finally, I've already mentioned, if you do pay the bill when it comes or a standing order or anything like that, just think about switching to direct debit, just because it could save you over sort of £200 a year. So that's where we're at with energy bills. Bit more certainty than we had in July, but still not a huge amount we can do apart from sort of good practice in terms of managing bills. Has anyone got any questions on any of that?
Yeah, it's Anthony Horner from Site Airedale. I was just wondering with the price cap, is it a case that 2,500 is fixed for 2 years, but if energy prices go down, we still pay that rate, or is it that's the maximum?
It's a really good question, and there's still probably a bit of uncertainty. So that will be the maximum. So if prices come down, I don't know what will happen. I think they're sort of expecting, because we expected to already to have the big price rise on the 1st of October. Then we expected another one in January. Then we expected another one in April. So clearly the £2,500 is going to be a lot less than certainly what prices would have been next year. The year after, I don't know what will happen to them then. And I don't know what will happen to this energy price guarantee set at the 2,500. I suspect that it will just be kept in place. But what we might see to happen, if prices do come down, energy companies might start offering perhaps more fixed tariffs that are a bit more competitive, that could be a bit cheaper. But it's a bit of speculation because it's just really difficult to know. But all we really know is that they won't go more than £2,500 for average use over the next 2 years.
I've got a quick one, Kate. Tim from Science Advice. Yeah. The £220 a year that you pay extra, if you like, if you just pay your bill at the post office or the bank. If I was to advise somebody, obviously I'd advise them to go to direct debit, but could I advise them to go to prepay meter as well? Would they save money going back that way?
Yeah, so prepayment meter, if I just go back to the previous slide, prepayment meter is only, I mean, I say only, it shouldn't really be any more expensive. It's about £60 a year more expensive than direct debit. So you could advise that would save if you were switching from paying when the bill comes to prepayment. The only challenge I would suggest with prepayment is, and it's perhaps similar to paying when the bill comes, you've just got to find so much money all in one go in winter. So it's whether you're sort of happy to manage that, and also people's circumstances about the practicalities of going out to top up meters and putting the key and card in the meter. If it was a smart prepayment meter, it would be possible to do it sort of on an app or by ringing up, that sort of thing. But it's just those practicalities. If say someone is not bothered about the fact of paying more in the winter, because, you know, that's just how we've always done it, if the bill comes, the other option is, rather than doing a fixed direct debit, because a lot of people don't like the idea of a fixed direct debit, because they'll work out what they think you're going to use over the year, divide it by 12, and you pay the same every month. The other option is to pay a variable direct debit, which works exactly the same as when the bill comes. So you're only paying for what you've actually used, but instead of you going to pay it, it comes out by direct debit. So it's similar, but in terms of the amounts you pay, it's just you then would get the access to the cheaper direct debit costs. And what they would do, they'd still send you a bill every month or every quarter, and they would say, right, in a week or in 2 weeks, we will take this amount from your bank account. So again, it's you're just paying for what you used rather than based on an estimate from the company.
Okay, thank you.
David Cornby from Outlookers.
Hi, David.
If somebody's on a prepayment meter How easy is it to change, or is it worth changing to direct debit?
Yeah, so again, it kind of depends on people's individual sort of circumstances in terms of whether it's better to do that. It's certainly perhaps easier for budgeting, as I said, if you spread the direct debit across the year, and it might be easier in terms of the practicalities of actually, direct debit just comes out every month. You don't have to worry about being cut off or running out of power. In terms of getting the meter itself changed, if someone's with one of the big six or the bigger energy companies, then they will do that free of charge. They usually will run a credit check, but if that's all fine, then they should come out and actually change the meter for free. Some of the smaller companies may make a charge, but I think most of them now would do it for free. And if it's a smart prepayment meter, some of them don't actually need to be switched, like the meter doesn't physically need to be switched. It can just be switched into credit mode without needing someone to come out. So it depends what type of meter it is in terms of whether you have to get a brand new meter fitted or whether it could just be switched to credit mode.
Thank you.
Well, hi, it's Tony here. I'm a volunteer with Support for Sight. I've got a question for you, Kate.
Okay.
Looking at your energy prices here, I see that it's electric and gas that the government have put a price cap on. That's correct, is it?
Yeah.
We have no gas supply where we live. We live in Chelmsford, on the edge of Chelmsford, but surprisingly, we have no gas main in the village. So we use domestic oil. And domestic oil prices, like all energy costs, have gone through the roof. But I don't see any government intervention to introduce a price cap for domestic oil users. So we're completely at the mercy of, excuse me, of the market at the moment, and oil prices are just going through the roof.
Yeah.
Do you know of any ideas the government have got to help domestic oil users?
Yeah, so it's a really important point, and I think the government tends to forget that not everybody's on gas. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I think it was back in March, wasn't it, that it just went up to ridiculous prices as well, and it's still a lot higher than it was sort of last winter. The only thing that the government's announced is that as part of their sort of financial package, they're giving households who heat by oil or LPG just a one-off £100 to help with that. But it's quite vague at the moment in terms of how that's actually going to be administered, because they're not going to have a big long list of people who heat their homes with oil. So whether it will be done through oil companies and taken off bills, I don't know. But they have confirmed that they're going to give £100 for people who heat with oil. Alongside
is that definitely going to happen, or is it just a maybe and we don't know when or how?
They've said it's going to happen. It's on their sort of list of the support they're giving this winter, but they haven't said exactly how it's going to happen. They have said it's going to happen, but not how.
Can I also ask? I mean, I use a log burner. Is there anything? And logs and coal are going up, untold at the moment. Is there anything going to be done about that, or that I can cash in? I can get into?
I haven't heard anything about logs or coal, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I'll make a note of it and I'll have another look. But last time I looked, I couldn't see anything for logs or coal. Apart from, some of the other, I don't know if you qualify for any of the other cost of living payments, which we'll come on to, but some of those, the reason that they're going into bank accounts rather than to energy bills is to try and help people who don't, who have other heating costs that aren't covered by electric or gas. So there's only those really that could help with that.
Okay,
sorry, it's Evelyn. Can I just ask a quick question? I know you're coming on to the, I think the £400 that people are supposed to be getting later in the year. The thing is, I live in a blind and disabled warden assisted, sheltered housing, and the gas is actually paid for by the company, the organisation. So so only pay for electricity. You would still get the grant if you only want fuel? You see what I mean?
Yeah, So what they're doing with the £400, they are linking it to electricity accounts, just because everybody has electric and not everybody has gas. So if you've got an electric account, you'll get that. Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Shall I come on to those now, if there's no other questions?
Yes, please. If there is no more question or comment from anyone. Can't see anybody. So yes, please. Kate,
Okay.
if you can do that, that would be great.
Okay, so yeah, so the £400 that's just been mentioned, so that is just to confirm that's going to everybody. It's not means tested. So if you pay an electricity account to an energy company, you get it. There are some other sort of variations or exceptions for people who don't pay to an energy company. They might pay to a landlord, that sort of thing. They have said that everybody should get this, but again, it's a bit vague in terms of how it will work if the landlord pays the bill and then subcharges the tenants. But anyway, for the majority, it should be quite straightforward. So payments have started to be made this month. How you get it depends on how you pay for your energy. So if you pay direct debit, even within that, there's two different ways. Either your energy company will reduce your direct debit by £66 a month, or you'll pay the same direct debit and they'll refund £66 into your bank account. So which one of those happens depends which energy company you're with. I think I'll put this on this next slide actually. Yeah, so that's just direct debit. There is another really good website, webpage through Martin Lewis that breaks it down by each energy company. So I can send you the link. So if you say with British Gas and want to know how you're getting it, you can look it up on there. If you pay the bill when it comes or standing order or on some sort of payment plan, the £66 will be credited automatically to your energy account. So you don't need to do anything. It will just be credited on there. So next time you get a bill, it will just come off how much you owe. So that's direct to the energy company, not to your bank account. The third one is for anyone who has the kind of older style prepayment meter where you might go to the shop to top up. So if that's you, then you should get a voucher by text, email or post. These seem a bit slower coming out. I've not spoken to many people on prepayment meters who have actually had theirs yet, but it should come as a voucher. If you have a smart prepayment meter, the £66 should be automatically credited to your meter. It will either be split, if you've got gas, it will either be split between gas and electric, or it will all be put onto the electric meter. And again, which one of those happens depends on which energy company you're with. But the webpage I just mentioned does break all that down for you. So I'll send the link for that afterwards. So does anyone have any other questions on that £400?
Just only one maybe, like what's the timeline for the government? By which point everybody should have it on their account in one way or another?
I think it will depend on the energy company, but basically it will just be £66 a month. So if you pay your direct debit, if it comes out at the end of the month, you'll only see it at the end of the month.
Yeah.
But it will be between October and March. So you should get 6 payments to go up to make it up to the £400 in total.
Thank you.
What does one do if it doesn't come through? Who would one contact?
I would expect you need to contact your energy company
Right.
because they're the ones administering this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that one. So the second one is for anyone who receives means tested benefits. So this could be things like universal credit, pension credit guarantee, some of the sort of older legacy benefits, ESA, that sort of thing. Anyone who gets any of those should have got half of this money in July. So it was 326, I think, £326 paid in July. The second payment is coming in November. I think they said it was between the 8th and the 26th of November, something like that. And that will just go paid into a bank account. Now, if any of you went on means tested benefits back in July, it doesn't mean you won't get the second half of the payment if you've now gone on to means tested benefits, because there's different qualifying months for it. So so that one should come automatically into bank accounts.
Kate, this is not an addition, £650. Yeah, it is either 400 or if you add on tested is 650.
No, you get both of them.
Oh, both.
Yeah.
400 plus 650. Yeah. Oh, okay.
So everybody gets the 400 irrespective of your circumstances. Anyone on means tested benefits gets this additional money. So half of it back in July, half of it in November. So it's extra. None of these are sort of mutually exclusive. Some people might qualify for all of them. So because the third one, for example, anyone who receives non-means tested disability benefits, so things like PIP, DLA, attendance allowance, you should be getting an extra £150, which most of those payments started to be made on the 20th of September. So I'd imagine a lot of those have already been paid out. But again, that goes into bank accounts, £150. And again, if you get, say, I don't know, universal credit and PIP, you'll get the 650 and the 150 and the 400. So yeah, so that's just non-means tested disability benefits.
Sorry, sir. I pay the gas. I've got two accounts, two bank accounts, and one of them is all my direct debits. So the £400 would be taken off that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas I get my PIP and severe disablement allowance. I get that through the other bank. So it would the 150 would come to the one that gives me the benefits in the first place, would it?
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, mine was paid last month. It just came through as a separate £150 from Department of Work and Pensions,
right.
straight into my bank account.
Yeah, thanks. Better check.
Yeah, check your bank account.
Yeah.
See if it's come through.
It's a separate payment to your PIP.
Yeah, right.
You'll get your PIP and then you'll get an extra one from them. I can't remember the actual terminology they put on it, but it's a different one to PIP.
Right. Yeah, and it's definitely worth being aware of, because I spoke to a chap the other week and he said, I've got this extra 150, but I don't do anything with it because I don't know if I was supposed to have got it. So it's just worth knowing that you're definitely getting it. You're not going to be asked to pay it back.
I think the government's advice is, hi, sorry, Alex from Campsite. The government advice was if you haven't received it by the 3rd of October or something like that, that you need to contact them to track down what the hold up is, basically.
Thanks. Oh, thanks for that. That's really useful. And that just reminds me, actually, so thank you for doing that. If you feel like you should have got the means tested one, the £326 in July and didn't, again, there is a link on the government website to sort of claim or report a missing payment. Just thought of that because I had a lady last week who got ESA and she hadn't received it. So she was going to look into why she hadn't got it, because she should have done. Because I think it was income related ESA. So the final one is for anybody who gets the winter fuel payment. So this is for any pensioner. If you're a state pension age and you normally get the winter fuel payment in the winter, which is not a means tested benefit, it's just for anybody who's state pension age, you will be getting an extra £300 on top of what the winter fuel payment is you normally get. So the winter fuel payment is normally, say, £200 a household. If you normally get £200, you'll get an extra £300. So you'll get £500 in total. If you're over, I think it's over 80, you get £300 for the winter fuel payment. You'll get an extra £300 on top of that. So this will be paid into bank accounts as well, which should be around November, December time, whenever you normally get your winter fuel payment. So again, that should just sort of come automatically.
Hey, is that paid? I mean, my wife and I qualify for that pension payment.
Yeah.
And we normally get, it's not if it's £200, I think we normally get £100 each. And I take it this £300 will be split the same way, will it? £150 each.
It will be, yeah. It's £300 per household. So yeah, absolutely right.
Is that all pensioners?
Yeah, if you get the state pension, then yeah, there is a cut-off date where you have to have been born before a certain date. I think it's 1954, September 1954, something like that. There is an actual date that if you're born before then, you'll start getting the winter fuel payment. But if you get your state pension, then yeah, you should be getting this.
Is
That's sort of one-off.
the
Sorry.
is the means tested? Not the means tested. Is the disability benefit the £150 one? Is that £150 per household, or is that £150? So if there's two people in a household who get a disability benefit, will that household get 300, or will it just get 150?
As far as I understand it, it's connected to the benefit recipient. So if there's two people who get the disability benefits, then how I understand it is you should both get it, because they won't be digging around sort of that much into sort of per household, whereas the pensioner one is already set up as it has to be sort of per household.
Thanks.
I take it, Kate, these are being seen as all these extra benefits and payments are being seen as one-off payments at the moment, are they?
Yeah, so certainly at the moment, I haven't heard anything about what might happen next year, but clearly we know the energy prices are going to be really high still next year. So it would be pure speculation, but I would expect at least the means tested benefit payment to stay the same next year. Whether or not everybody will get help going forward, I don't know. If anything's going to go, I would expect it probably to be that one, but it's just speculation because we just don't know. Okay, so the last thing I just wanted to say on here is then please be aware of scam. There are loads and loads of scams going around about these sort of cost of living, energy bill payments. So for example, I've had a few texts in the last couple of weeks, which might say things like, Gov UK, we have identified you as eligible for a discounted energy bill under the Energy Bill Support Scheme. You can apply here, and there's a link to click on. So just to say, you do not have to apply for any of these. They all come automatically. So if you get any of these text messages or emails, please delete them. I spoke to a chap the other week and he told me I don't need to apply for my £150 because I get PIP. I've already had the message. I've filled in the form. I've given them all my bank details, so I should just get it. And I had to sort of tell him that it was a scam, but he showed me the website and it was really, really convincing. It looked exactly like a government website would be for one of their forms. So just delete anything and they know who gets, the qualifying benefits. You do not have to apply for them.
How would it work, that scam then? Who would get the money? Would they get your bank details or something?
They're just after accessing your bank account, basically. Yeah. So, and the money in your bank account. So they're not applying for anything. They're just trying to get your bank details so they can then try and steal your money, basically.
Very nice.
And I think, all this stuff that I'm telling you today, please we always sort of encourage people to think, who else do you know? Who else do you know in your family who might benefit from this? And please do pass it on, because, even if all of you just passed information to another one person, we can really just help spread all of this further. So that's just being aware of scams around that. So the other thing I just wanted to give you an update on, in case any of you qualify for this, and it's the Warm Home Discount Scheme. So the Warm Home Discount Scheme has been running for probably about 10 or 12 years now. And it's, for the last few years, it's been £140 that certain households could get over the winter to help with their energy bills. So there's been two groups of people. So for anyone, if any of you get pension credit guarantee, you should always have received this automatically. So last year it would have been £140. This winter it's going to be £150. You've never had to apply for it. It just goes automatically to your energy company. There is another group of sort of residents, though, who could apply for the warm home discount, and it was usually based on household income. So, for example, household income under £16,000 and a pensioner in the home, or someone who got a disability benefit, or someone with children. So all of those people could have applied for this in the past, but there's a really important change to this scheme this winter, and nobody applies anymore. So if you've applied in the past, you don't do that anymore. They're making it so everybody who qualifies gets it automatically. But what they are doing is changing the criteria. So I mentioned before, just being on a lower income qualifies you. It doesn't anymore. Now you have to be on means tested benefits. So things like universal credit, job seekers, child tax credits, housing benefit, that sort of thing. But even that isn't enough this winter. They're adding in an extra criteria and say that also you have to have high energy costs. So what does that mean? I don't know, because they're not going to be looking at everyone's bills and saying, oh, you know, that person who lives up the road has high energy costs. They're going to be looking at things like the size of your property. Are you on mains gas? Because if you're not, you're probably going to have higher energy costs. You know, what type of property is it? Is it old? Is it solid wall? So it's very vague. And I can't tell you if you qualified last year, whether you'll qualify this year, because we just don't know how they're going to work it out. So it's really just to say, if you've got it in the past, it's a case of waiting to see whether you'll get it again this winter. And it's the government website hasn't even been updated on this yet, even though we're in October and heating's starting to go on. So it's quite vague, and it will just be wait to see. If you get a letter in November, they'll let you know whether you qualify. If you don't get a letter, unfortunately, you probably won't. The government have said it means more people will qualify, but it's also going to mean people who have previously qualified won't anymore. And as I said, that's typically those people on an income under 16,000 who may have got disability benefits like PIP or attendance allowance. So it's a bit vague, is my summary, and we just have to wait and see, but it is changing. And as I say, no one has to apply anymore. Does anyone have any questions on that? No. Okay. So what I was going to go on to then is just have a bit of a chat about electric use, if that will be useful. And I've updated some of the figures that I probably shared with you last time, and I probably shared with you an information sheet, but the organisation that produced that hasn't updated the figures yet. So I've just kind of created my own mini one with the up-to-date prices. So this first table just shows you 5 electrical appliances in the home that use the most power. So right at the top of the table, we've got an electric shower. So if you've got an electric shower in your house, that will be using more electric than anything else. If it was on for the same length of time as a kettle, it would use 3 times as much power. And clearly we're not all in an electric shower for an hour, although if you've got lots of people in your house, it might add up to an hour. But per hour, an electric shower would cost you about £3.50. Even for 10 minutes, you'll be looking at getting on towards £1. So it's, yeah, it's quite expensive, an electric shower. So number 2 on the list is an immersion heater. So probably more likely for any of you who don't have mains gas, you might have an electric immersion heater for your hot water. So a big tank of water that's heated by electric. That also uses a lot of power. If you have it on for an hour, you'd probably be looking at about £1 an hour. It's a bit of a myth that immersion heaters have to be kept on all the time, and it's actually cheaper than turning them off and on all the time. It really isn't. We've had this with a chap recently who'd always had his immersion heater on 24/7, and I was trying to encourage him not to just say, right, turn it off and have it on for an hour, but test it, you know, just have it on for, you know, 10 hours instead. And then if that's fine, you still have enough hot water, just have it on for 5 hours and gradually reduce things down, which he did. And it made an absolutely amazing difference to his electric bills. So just, yeah, just be aware of that one. Kettle, number 3, again, uses a lot of power, but it's not on for very long. So some of these are about how much power do they use, but also how long do you use them for? So a kettle, if you had it on for a total of 10 minutes during the day, you'd probably be looking at about 17p for your kettle use during the day. Number 4, tumble dryer. So I think this is a massive culprit, and I refuse to have a tumble dryer in my home because I just know how much it would cost, and I know if we had one, my partner would use it. So the best thing is just not to have it at all. Again, that would probably cost up to about £1 an hour. So clearly, if you can dry your clothes outside, then it's not going to cost you anything. You You can also get these like heated airers. I don't know if anyone's got them. You sort of plug in and you put something over the top, and basically it'll just dry your clothes as a heated airer. Runs off electric. Probably only uses about 1/10 of the power of a tumble dryer though. So you'd be looking at about 10p an hour rather than about £1 an hour.
They also warm your room as well.
Oh, have you got one?
Friend of mine's got one.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and they say it warms the room as well.
Oh, perfect. So double whammy, isn't it then? Brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's that one. And then washing machine. I mean, the washing machine, it will clearly depend on what temperature you have it on, all that sort of thing. Anything between about 40p and £1. And I think with a lot of these, you know, clearly we have to use these things. We have to wash our clothes, we have to wash ourselves, all that sort of thing. But it's like, if you are doing those things, what can you do just to save? So with the washing machine, do it on a lower temperature. Make sure you only run it when it's full. You know, don't just stick it on if you've only put a couple of things in it. Electric shower, cut your shower time. I mean, that will make a massive difference to your electric bills. So
how about fridge freezers? Don't they use up a lot?
Yeah, so fridge freezers, that's an interesting one, because clearly they would use probably about 200 watts an hour, but they cycle on and off. So it's harder to actually work out exactly how much they use. Over a year, you'd probably be looking at about £40 a year, perhaps £50 a year for your fridge freezer. Well, one lot for a fridge and one lot for a freezer, which I don't think is too bad considering they are on sort of 24/7.
Is it? Sorry, I've got a fridge freezer in the kitchen, but I've also got an older freezer that's not on auto defrost. Would that be using up a hell of a lot? It's always getting iced up, you know. It's about 10 years old, I suppose.
Yeah, so there are things with freezers you can do to make them run more efficiently, and keeping them defrosted is one thing that you can do, because it will be less efficient if it is all sort of frosted up, for sure. And the other thing is, like with freezers, sometimes it can depend on how full they are. So the fuller your freezer, the more efficient it's going to be, because it's not working really, really hard trying to sort of cool empty spaces. So I have known people who have like screwed up bits of paper and put it in the freezer just to fill the gaps, or put in bottles of water, that sort of thing. So it's not working hard trying to cool those, as I say, those empty spaces. But the thing to do, if you ever, I mean, I'd never say, right, just go out and replace all your electrical appliances if they're all working absolutely fine. But when they come up for replacement, try and choose the most energy efficient ones you can get. And they all have these energy labels on now that rate it from A down to G. And what it also says on the energy label is how many like kilowatts of electric it would use over the year. And then you should be able to work out how much that would cost. So you can get this information. If you've bought a new fridge recently, to be honest, you can probably like look it up on Google and find out how much power it uses. But yeah, certainly freezers that are pretty frosted up will use more.
A related question, Kate. My electricity supplier is regularly asking me if I'd like to switch to a smart meter, right. And because they say, oh, you can keep control, you can see what power is being consumed in the house, etc. And I just wonder what your view on the smart meters are.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think smart meters are a really good thing, but I think they've been rolled out really badly. So generally, the benefits of smart meters, there's loads. So with a smart meter, the smart meter itself is the new meter. So what they'll first do is take out your existing electric meter, and then if you've got gas, take out your existing gas meter and fit the smart meter exactly where they're fitted. So the benefit of having that is that your bills are always going to be up to date. You shouldn't get any estimated bills. You're more likely to be able to see how much you're using, and you're avoiding any shock bills that suddenly come out the blue because your bills have been estimated. And if you find it difficult to read a meter, or if it's in somewhere very inaccessible, then clearly having the meter readings go automatically is great. Alongside that, you get the little plug-in monitor that can go inside your house. And that will show you how much things are costing, how much you've spent that day. You can set budgets. someone was telling me last week they set their daily budget at £5, and if their grandkid comes around, they're not allowed to do anything that takes it above the £5, and they really sort of keep an eye on things, and they'll give them alternatives. You can either do that or that, but you can't do both because it will be above £5. So it helps you with that sort of budgeting. You can also get those monitors, accessible monitors, which have been developed specifically with the RNIB. So that's definitely worth sort of asking for. So I think that is useful as well. So if you were worried like how much an old freezer's costing, you'd be able to go around, turn things off and just double check how much that's costing. The other reason potentially for getting one soon is, have you seen in the news, they've been talking about blackouts and things like that. And there's various there's various sort of incentives like energy companies are now looking at to try and sort of smooth out peak use of electric. So Octopus, for example, have been doing a trial, and for anyone on a smart meter who are doing the trial, they've been incentivizing people to use their electric outside of the peak times. So they're saying, right, if you can try and use your washing machine after, say, 7 o'clock at night, cook your dinner after 7, and if people are using it outside those times, they're giving them a little bit of money back on their bills. So smart meters going forward into the future might help you access different types of tariffs that, as I say, might be financially beneficial if you use electric at strange times of day, all that sort of stuff. So I think generally they're a really good idea. I think when they were first rolled out, they weren't compatible between all different energy companies. People had problems when they switched. And I'm not saying they're perfect now because they're not, but if they were working as they should do, there are a lot of benefits to having one for sure.
Is that economy
just quickly? Sorry, just quickly. Yeah. My personal meter has a day rate and a night rate, and then if I run appliances through the night rate is cheaper.
Right.
So does the smart meter still maintain that the true rate system?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can get a smart meter that would be compatible with whatever you've got at the moment. So if you've got a single rate electric meter, you'll get a single rate smart electric meter. If you've got an economy 7 electric meter, you'll get an economy 7 smart meter. If you've got a prepayment meter, you'll get a smart prepayment meter. So it sort of follows on from whatever setup you've got at the moment. Economy 7 smart meters, though, it does depend which company you're with, because some seem to have a real issue providing economy 7 smart meters, whereas others just seem to provide them absolutely no problem. So I think it'd just be worth asking your company whether they can do that or not.
Going back to what you were saying about the accessible smart meter, is that already available if requested, or is that still a work in progress?
No, they should be available now. Yeah.
And is that can be requested by just going to your supplier?
Yeah. Has anyone had experience of requesting those?
I've heard. Oh, sorry.
We're actually on the, we've just literally had our smart meter put in. We had it put in 2 weeks ago. And we're on the priority services register. Mm-hmm. And we actually got the accessible display automatically. We're with OVO, so I don't know if that's what OVO do or if that's what all of them do, but it may be worth being on the priority services register because that's designed for vulnerable customers.
Does it actually speak to you? Is
yes.
It audio? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it will. You can turn the speech on, and it will say your electricity usage is currently low. You are using, 17p a minute. And if you're not careful, it will keep repeating it, so you've got to turn the voice
off. I'm with Utility Discount Warehouse, or Utility UW, as they put forward these days, and I've been trying to get an accessible home display for the last 2 to 3 years. They came in January and fitted me a new smart meter and said that they were testing out the accessible home display and that I would get it by April. And I've had a complaint with them ever since because I'm not getting this accessible home display from Utility Warehouse. So I'm still having problems with them.
And I think that those two comments just sum up the whole situation with energy companies. It's just so variable depending on who you're with. Anthony, you're just getting one without even asking because they can match up your details to the priority services register, and other people still waiting after all this time. So yeah, definitely sort of discuss it. And I'd say if you've still got a complaint open and it's been more than 8 weeks, I would take it to the Energy Ombudsman and just say, look, I've had this complaint for 8 weeks, more than 8 weeks, and they're just not doing anything about it. Other energy companies are providing their customers with this information, and Utility Warehouse aren't. Whether or not the Ombudsman, because they will intervene in customer complaints and put forward recommendations or actions that the company has to take, whether they might just say, well, we haven't got the equipment or whatever, I don't know, but it's still worth sort of raising just to try, I would say.
Is there an email address for the Energy Ombudsman? Do I
Yeah,
just Google it?
Yeah, if you Google it and then you submit your complaint online, so you just sort of set up your own account and you explain which company it's with, what you've done, what resolution you want, and they'll ask the energy company what they've done to try and put it right, and then they'll make a series of recommendations. And the energy company is supposed to abide by whatever they say. But as I say, if it's a case they haven't got the kit, whether they can force them to do it, I don't know, but it's still worth doing. And you could say one of the things you want is compensation as well, and then they might look at that. But that's the case with any complaints. And my number one thing is, if you've got an issue with an energy company, raise it as a formal complaint as early as possible, because if it's then gone those 8 weeks, that could be with anything, it could be doing billing, how they've treated you, all sorts of things. Because at the end of those 8 weeks, you can, if it's not been resolved to your satisfaction, you can take it to the Energy Ombudsman. But you can only do that if you've raised it as a formal complaint with the company.
Yeah.
Yeah, and David, also, if it's available for other companies, then why would we not be available for Utility Warehouse? And obviously under the Equality Act 2010, you, as you know, you are entitled to the same service as everybody else, so you should not be discriminated just because you have a, a disability. So
they were testing it in January. They assured me they were testing it in January and I'd get it by April. But yeah.
I think you waited long enough.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, like I said, I'm in a sheltered place. So our meter, they don't come in the premises to read the meter. They're outside on the wall. So would that be stop me having a smart meter in the place?
Having in terms of the monitor, it may depend how far away the meter is from where you'd have the plug-in monitor.
It's only outside the front door of the flat. We've all, each got one sort of above our front door.
All right,
so in the corridor. It's not external as such, but it's not in my flat, just on the wall outside.
Yeah, so they'd fit the smart meter where the existing meter is, but then if it's literally just outside your flat, then that should be close enough for you to have the plug-in monitor inside, and for it to, because, worst case scenario, because some people don't like the monitors and don't want to look at them, but having the smart meter itself will make sure you get the meter reading sent over. And the monitor, you don't have to plug in, you can put it in a drawer if you want to. So it depends sort of what the priority is. If it's
I'd want to know what the consumption is, because I leave the TV on a lot. And I mean, does standby make a big difference, putting on standby, the remote?
So it's advised, or it's been estimated, should I say, that the average household wastes about £65 a year leaving appliances on standby. So it clearly depends on how many things you have around the house. A TV on normal power would probably use about 6 or 7p an hour to run. So having it on standby is going to be pretty small amounts, but it's still sort of wasteful. I wouldn't have said leaving it on standby would cost you any more than a few pound a year, particularly if it's a newer telly, because the power of standby has been reduced quite a lot. But it's not a huge amount. Because if I just show you, because I know we probably want to finish soon, so we're up to 11, but there's at the bottom of my table, I've just got sort of 5 other things really. Right at the very bottom, we've got a mobile phone charger, for example, that costs you less than 0.2 of a p an hour. So you could charge your phone every day for a whole year, it probably wouldn't cost you more than about £1. Things like extractor fans, only about 1p an hour, laptop about 2p an hour. Then you've got your TV, which is up to 7p an hour that I've just talked about. So these sort of things, they're not costing a huge amounts of money. This is why if you do want to make some savings, look at the things that use the most, because that's where you'll make the biggest difference. And
just quickly, the smart reader applies to anyone because some people out there don't have internet or Wi-Fi. So is that still effective without having Wi-Fi at home? Yeah, you don't need Wi-Fi at home. They sort of go off the sort of signal, mobile phone signal in your area.
Alex, you just need electricity and you need to plug it in. So it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you electricity to look at how much you're using, but that's okay. It's so smart. It's all runs on electricity.
Yeah, just checking. I think I should have said Bluetooth as well. That's what I was thinking as well. But yeah, good to know.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Because we're
I've just got one about renewable energy. Our energy supplier over makes a big thing about the fact that, congratulations, now that you've got a smart meter, you're getting 100% renewable energy. But of course, we're still paying the same rates. And I did hear, is there some plans of putting this link between the price of gas and renewables?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. So because at the moment, that, as you say, there is this link. So the reason our energy prices have gone up so much is because the wholesale price of gas has gone up so much, and we're sort of linked into this worldwide market on gas. And because of the link, it means when gas prices go up, the electric prices go up automatically. But they are talking, as you say, about cutting that link. So, and they've also been sort of suggesting that they might even put a cap on the sort of profits that electric generators can actually make. But whether they'll do that or not, I don't know. But hopefully that will bring down the cost. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I think this sort of 2-year energy price guarantee thing is almost giving the government a bit of time almost just to work out what their energy policy is actually going to be.
Okay. So what are we doing? We're on what's the time now, Kate? We're on, is it 5 past or something? I can't see my watch. 4 minutes past. Okay. Well, I mean, for me, it was excellent and really clear. Is anybody got one more question before we any big ones? So I think it was really, really clear. And for me, Site Advice South Lakes, we'll put this into our winter magazine, if you like. We already did the early stuff, which went very well. So thank you, because it's really easy to use your slides and put them in the magazine. So it's great information, very clear.
I hope it was useful.
It was.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
It was. Yes, thank you very much.
If we've just got a few moments, I spoke to you on the telephone after your last talk, and one of the things that I'm keeping my gas boiler now, but I have a Hive thermostat, but I've started looking at the Hive Radiator thermostats. Do you know anything about them?
I don't, I'm afraid, but I might look into them because we've just had a Hive system fitted as well when our other heating controls broke. So I don't know much about them. I can't, but I imagine any kind of heating controls, and probably the more sophisticated you get, are good things. And using your heating controls properly will definitely sort of save money. I mean, we'd always say, turn down temperature of radiators, rooms you're not using and things during the day. And I assume that they would just do it automatically, and automatic systems always end up saving you something. But whether
I have the sort of manual thermostat controls at the moment. But if, say, my bedroom drops below the temperature, it won't come on until the main thermostat turns the boiler on.
Right.
But looking at the radiator thermostats, it appears to me that each radiator is capable of firing up the boiler and just heating that particular radiator.
Right. I don't know how that would work. I'm doing that.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, if you've got these thermostats on each radiator in the house,
Yeah.
Obviously my lounge has got the main thermostat. But if I make my lounge nice and warm, and the bedroom has got the power to fire up the boiler, all the other valves, thermostats are off. So the only radiator that will heat up is the bedroom. That's the way I read their advertising blurb.
Right. Okay.
Sounds a bit too good to be true, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I wonder if it's like if it would literally sort of turn off the radiators in other parts of the house, but that one would, if you've got them all set differently. But I still, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to have a look more into that, I think.
Yeah,
that would work.
The advertising blurb sounds marvellous, but you know,
Yeah.
very often it doesn't stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a plumber, Peter. We haven't got a plumber online, have we?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. I think we've got to call it to an end.
Live Well and Future Vision. We hope you enjoyed this presentation. The Live Well events take place on the second Thursday of each month at 10 AM. Future Vision sessions take place on the fourth Thursday of each month at 10 AM and are technology events aimed at people living with sight loss. To attend the next session or to suggest future topics, please contact your local Sight Society, who will be able to provide you with the Zoom link.